In the interest of truth in advertising, I want to tell you my affiliations before I go into this presentation. I am Vice President and Director of WCPS, and we're partially responsible for attending this esteemed conference. I must say I've really had a wonderful time here and looking forward to the rest of the program. I'm a treasurer, trustee, and life member of the Institute of Industrial Engineers, retired chair of Industrial and Systems Engineering at The Ohio State University. That means I'm a recovering academic. And I'm a fellow of both the Institute of Industrial Engineers, Human Factors Society, and the World Academy of Productivity Science. And of course, I was president of the World Academy of Productivity Science after I became a fellow. I'm going to talk about C productivity, and I guess if you've been here for any session, you've heard something either directly associated with C productivity or implicit in what's been talked about is C productivity. Now I'm going to talk about shared value, and I'm also going to talk about the fact that shared value is a non-zero sum game. So the first thing I need to do is poll the delegation and see, do you understand the concept of a zero sum or a non-zero sum game? Those who do indicate somehow. All right, less than half. All right. Pardon? I got the answer I wanted, so that's okay. If you play poker, you play a zero-sum game. I win, you lose. You win, I lose. And it's been my thesis for over 40 years in the academy, and since I've been married almost 50 years of married life, that most of the real important games in life are non-zero-sum games, played as if they were zero-sum games. The way you win a zero-sum game is compete. The way you win a non-zero-sum game is to collaborate. And that's going to be central to what I'm talking about here. First, I want to think about productivity, and I found a definition that works for me regarding productivity, and believe me, there are a few. And I want to reference at the bottom of the screen there Tom Friedman's book on The World is Flat. How many of you are familiar with that particular book or have read it? You really should. Productivity is a process wherein value or wealth is created by the transformation of systems that generate goods and or services. Transformation, I'm Chief Transformation Officer. Now I want you to think about context. First I said productivity, now context. Why would I want you to think about context? Well, it's because context dictates how we experience the world, dictates effectiveness and efficiency, and the way we can operate, manage, and or transform organizations, products, or services. In other words, context shapes productivity. Now, I used a 2007 global survey by McKinsey because that was the closest data I had before I agreed to give this talk. And after I submitted the slides, a lot more data became available, and I've changed some of it. But let's look at it. 2007 study was then announced in 2008, so it's really not old data. 70% of the executives from around the world said that global, social, environmental, and economic trends are increasingly important to them. However, and the report goes on to say this, few companies act on the global trends that they think will affect them most. And among the few who do, 17% at that time said there was a return on their investment. If we look at the responses of the executives, we learned something very interesting to me. They said that here are the reasons that these people are missing out on the opportunities. Shortage of skills. So they're skillless, higher priority, something else is more important, and lack of possible responses, they're clueless. I had the opportunity, a really honor of being invited by the United Nations Global Compact to attend a meeting in Geneva, which was called their Leadership Summit, and Secretary General, easy for you to say, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon invited 1,000 of his closest friends to come to Geneva and join in this particular enterprise. He was the major keynote speaker at the meeting, and he stayed at the meeting for 2.5 days, which the Secretary General doesn't do very often. And here's what he said. Global interdependence brings with it a fundamental realization. One, power can't be separated from, so the key word here is responsibility. The next word is trust and legitimacy. So businesses, in order to sustain growth, have to build trust and responsibility. And third, for markets to expand in a sustainable way, they provide those who are currently excluded with better and more opportunities to improve their livelihoods. So here's the Secretary General of the UN telling us about sea productivity. And what he finally said was, we're just beginning to act on this understanding. WCPS, and I want to thank John Heap, who's in the room, and I'll give him credit for this. He at the Riggs lecture at our meeting in Sun City, South Africa, John introduced the notion, not the notion of sea productivity because it's been around, but to call it sea and say, let's see more clearly what's involved in productivity was really a breakthrough realization, and we're going to do our best, we being WCPS, the World Confederation of Productivity Science, to brand sea productivity. This is the Venn diagram that describes what sea productivity is all about. It's social, it's environmental, and it's economic productivity. And if you see the intersections, the intersection of the three is sustainability. So we look at social improvement, economic improvement, and environmental improvement. I mentioned shared values. Sea productivity requires, one expectation is that there be shared values. Now, what's a value? A shared value is an explicit or implicit fundamental belief, concept, or principle that underlies the culture of an organization. It's the core values of the organization, and it's reflected in the decisions that the people in the organization make, and by extension, the stakeholders in that organization. Inherent in sea productivity are values that emerge from global awareness of the need for sustainable growth. Look, if we've heard anything since this program started, it's sustainability, need for